Hello! So today we are going to take the new version of the Airbus A320 that was released with Sim Update 15 and take it from Jacksonville in the US over to Tampa in Florida in the US. And half the reason for doing this is I have a very good friend that's flying over to Tampa and is in the air right now and is approaching Tampa in the next few hours. So they're going home, they've been visiting the UK. And I thought it might be nice for them to see the approach into Tampa from the pilot's view. So that's why we're going to do this. Also, it's another opportunity for me to try out this Airbus and to work through the procedures with it and to become a bit more familiar with it, really. I've only flown it once so far, properly. So this will be interesting. Let's see how many mistakes I make along the way. Okay, let's go and get inside the airplane. We'll put the head tracking on because it's always interesting to look around the cockpit and see it from a first-person perspective. We're going to use SimBrief. So before we get going though, let's go and jump around the cockpit and switch a few things on and then we'll get everything configured. So I've already programmed a flight into SimBrief. You can see it here. So we've got the operational flight plan available and you can see where we're going to leave Jacksonville, fly down over the coast and then into Tampa. Okay. We're also in the background, just for completeness, we're running Navigraph and we are running LittleNavMap in case we want to see different things along the way, because both are good at showing different things. Right. Alton 1 takes us overhead in the Airbus cockpit and we can turn the batteries on and then we can turn the external power on if it's available. It is available. So then we put the strobes to auto, nav and logo lights to 2, APU master switch on, give it a few seconds, you can see things are booting up around the airplane, then we start the APU. If we wanted to go and check it because we're doing things so quickly, the screens haven't booted up yet in the cockpit, so we can't look at the ECAM screen just yet. If we hang on a few seconds, you can see everything's booting up slowly. There we go. And we get the APU is showing straight away. So we can clear that off and just leave it on the normal screen. It's obviously showing APU because the APU is firing up, but we don't have to hang on here and wait for that. We can go and do other things. So we'll go back overhead. We'll put the oxygen system on for the crew, and then we'll arm the emergency lights. Oh, sorry, not that one. This one. Told you I'd make some mistakes, didn't I? We put the no smoking signs to automatic, which basically means on. And then we'll turn the ADIRS system, the 3 INS systems, to nav, so that's inertial navigation system. Then we come back then to the cockpit and we check the brightnesses of the screens. I think on this version of the Airbus, all the screens are at max brightness when you come into the aircraft. So you've got the engineering screens here, and you've got the knobs for the pilot side here and here, and we've got the knobs for the co-pilot on the opposite side mirrored. So we'll clear out the master caution, so if we see anything along the way, we can deal with it. Okay. So what do we do next? I'm just looking through my own checklist here. So we're going to go over to the tablet now and we're going to go and get all the bits and pieces of the flight plan. So on the dashboard page we're going to click the SimBrief button, which will download the flight plan into the aircraft, and there it comes. So going from Jacksonville over to Tampa, and then we go to the payload section and we can pull the payload from SimBrief, so we get a number of passengers and cargo and an amount of fuel. We can apply that load to the aircraft. We'll do it instantly. So that loads the aircraft with all the people and the baggage and fuel, and that's all done for us. And then we can go down to the takeoff parameters. Now, before we do that, we need to go and look in payload and see what our live gross weight is, and it's 62.3 tons. That's the number we need to think about. So takeoff, we can sync the takeoff parameters with the aircraft, so we get the weather and so on showing up in here. Now we do need that weight, so I've forgotten it already. 62.3 tons. So we click in here and type in 62.3 and then click away from it. So that's essentially filled in the weight in tons, and then we can click on calculate. And that gives us our parameters for the flight management computer, or FMGC. And so then we can click on send to FMGS, sorry. So we send that data, and it's populated some of that data, not all of it, in the aircraft systems, and that will become obvious in a moment. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is jump over to the MCDU. The full name of this is the Multi-Purpose Control and Display Unit, if you ever wondered. So it's the same sort of thing as the FMC on a Boeing. So it's the flight management computer, essentially. So the first thing we're going to do is go into the Init button. So we can see nav accuracy downgraded. All that means is that the GPS hasn't aligned yet. Oh, sorry, the ADIS system hasn't aligned. So we want to get from and to and the flight number and all the rest of it. So we can just hit init request, and it will put it again from SimBrief from the data that came from the tablet a moment ago. We can put our cost index in. So where do we find that? Because it hasn't brought it in automatically. If we go and look on the operational flight plan, cost index is up at the top right corner here. So 28. So if we go back to the tablet and type in 28 into the cost index, we can now see we've got a notification that the route has been populated as well. We can put our flight number in, 123, just filling in with something. And then we can go sideways in the init page to the next page, and that's got the weights and the block fuel. So because we transferred the data from the tablet, we can just click the button and it will fill it up with data automatically. And the same goes for the block fuel. We can just click on it. It already knows what's in the aircraft based on the load sheet, so it can do it. Okay, so that's the initialization. So we can go to performance next. So because we did the takeoff calculations in the tablet, we've got the numbers for the rotation on the runway. So 145 knots for V1, 145 knots for rotate, and 147 knots for V2. Now, the interesting thing here is the flap THS setting. So if we go back over to the tablet and go back to the takeoff calculator, so we want to look at the flaps are here. So we want 1 and we want 0.2 up for THS. So in this field here, we're going to key in 1/0.2 up. Okay, and then drop that into there. The next thing is flex temp. So if we go back and look at the tablet, it's up here, look, 58 degrees centigrade. So if we come back to the tablet and key in 5.8 into flex temp, that does that, and you can see it says confirm takeoff data now. So we can press that, takeoff data uplink has happened, we can clear that out, and we can look through the other phases. So we've got climb, we could modify climb, we'll leave it. We can look at cruise, we'll leave it. We can look at the descent, we'll leave it. And later on in the flight, we can go and put the QNH in, or the barometric pressure, on the ground at the destination, and the temperature and the wind. But we're going to leave all that alone for the moment. And, oh, one more thing. We haven't filled everything in here just yet. We go into the flight plan page. We need to say how we're going to leave Jacksonville and how we're going to arrive at Tampa. So if we go and click on Jacksonville, we can go to departure. We can say we're leaving on runway 08. We are not doing a SID. Or are we? Let's go and have a look. Oh yes, we are. We're doing the Jet In 2 departure. Okay, so we scroll through them. There it is, Jet In 2. And we can insert that into the flight plan. And it will put all of the bits and pieces in until it gets to Dörte. So if we go and look on the plan, it knows how to leave the runway to get to Dörte, but then it doesn't know about getting from Jet In over to Capo. Yeah? So you've got, although looking here it says it does, but we've got some discrepancy here. Look, about there's a manual part of the departure. So because we don't have a controller, during a manual part you just ask for instruction, you know, or you'd be given instruction of which way to fly in order to get to that waypoint. We're not going to do that, so we're going to just clear that manual out. Whoops, flight plan. Did I do something wrong there? So let's clear the manual out. Clear, manual. There's Durta, and clear the discontinuity. There we go. We haven't said how we're arriving at Tampa yet, so we're going to select Tampa. We're going to come in on, no, let me see, it was 19 right on the Dade S1 arrival using the ILS. So ILS 19 right, and then Dade S1 standard terminal arrival route. We don't think we have a transition. No, we don't. So we just insert that. So let's have a scroll through and see if there's any discontinuities. I think there will be. Yes, there will be. Just before Faddy, between Dades and Faddy. So let's go and have a look down here. Is that here? Faddy. There we go, look. So there's a gap. So again, it's manual. So you would be taking control of the aircraft and taking vectors probably from ATC. So we'll just clear that out of our flight plan, and we've got, that's it, it's done. So you can see we've got a complete flight plan now. Now we could do a gross flight plan check and put this into plan mode and scroll through, but I think we'll believe that it's appropriate and correct. So what do we do next? Let's go and have a look. So looking at the cockpit, we're going to set the barometric pressure by pressing B to the local atmospheric pressure, so the altimeter is accurate. We're going to go over and set our cruise altitude as 220. We've got speed on managed mode, we've got heading on managed mode, altitude is on managed mode, that's all looking good. What else do we need to do? So yes, we're back looking at procedures then, getting ready to start the airplane up. So overhead, seat belts go to on, which are here. External power can come off now because obviously the APU has been up and running for a while. If we're going to push back, we would organise that now, but I don't think we need to. No, we're out in the middle of the parking area on our own, so no pushback required. So we're going to prepare for engine start. So overhead, we're going to go and put the beacon light to on. We're going to go and put the fuel pumps to on. Then we're going to go and turn the APU bleed to on, so that's allowing the compressed air through to the engines to spin the engines up, ready for them to be ignited. Okay, so then down in the cockpit, I'm going to use my controls to do this because I've got the Thrustmaster controls. We're going to turn the engine ignition switch to ignition start, and we're going to advance the starter lever for engine number 2. In response to doing that, N2 should light up after a few seconds. There it goes, and the engine is spooling up. So that's the compressed air spooling up the engine. We've got no fuel flow yet, and no exhaust gas temperature. So as soon as the fuel gets injected, which usually happens around about 20%, you'll see the fuel flow increase, the temperature go up, and the turbofan will start spinning. It started spinning already, look. So get ready, that's going to... Is it 25% maybe? I can never remember the numbers. Oh, 30% even. Takes a few seconds. Okay, so the fuel is flowing, it's been ignited, the temperature's going up, and the turbofan's starting to spin. We can see that happen outside. So if we look, you can see engine number 2 is spinning up. You can see heat pouring out of the back of it now. So when it gets to about 61%, it will be happy. There we go. And we can start the engine number 1. So push the starter for engine number 1, and you will see the N2 light up as the APU compressed air spins it up. And it follows the same automated sequence. So we can almost step away at this point. You will notice there are a number of things that have appeared. So system messages, we will be working through them over the next minute or two, so there's nothing to worry about. You'll notice the clock is UTC time, not local time. Most aeroplanes fly to UTC rather than local time zones because it would just increase the workload and confusion. So we're just waiting for the engine to start. As soon as it gets to about 61% and is essentially started, yeah, you can see the mode is changing on ECAM automatically to the next thing we need to be mindful of. So we're going to go and turn the ignition system off. And we're going to go overhead. We're going to switch the APU bleed off. We don't need to be using that compressed air anymore, and we can turn the APU off because the engines are now generating electricity. Flaps go to takeoff position, which was 1. So I've moved the flap lever back to 1. We need to arm the ground spoilers, although we don't actually need to do that until we get to the runway. We'll do that. We'll follow the list properly. I'm terrible for just winging it now and again. Okay, so what we do need to do, yeah, we're only slightly out of step. We need to go and move the predictive wind shear switch to 1. Then we can do this. And put the nose light to taxi. And we can taxi out to the runway. So I'm going to turn head tracking on at this point. Okay, so we can have a look around the aeroplane. We can come off the parking brake. We can ease the throttle forward. We're going to ignore the ground vehicles. Oh, there's something we've forgotten. Just realised I completely missed this out. In the ground section on this version of the Airbus, you can get rid of the GPU from outside and the chocks. Okay. Without the chocks removed, we're not going to go anywhere. So I said I'd be making mistakes, didn't I? Okay, we're rolling. So we're going to almost turn around on ourselves here to get out of the parking area. So there's the taxiway we want. So this is not a high fidelity version of Jacksonville. I don't think the version of Tampa I've got either is, but we'll find out when we get there. But it does mean the frame rate will be lovely and smooth because you haven't got all of the extreme detail of the airfield. So let's just check our route. Looking at the map, if we pull up the airport map, yeah, so we're going along Juliet at the moment, and then we go along Alpha, and then double back for runway 08. Whoa, brakes! We've gone too far here, haven't we? That's what serves me right for looking at the map. Yeah, we need to do a sharp left turn here. Luckily, the Airbus is very good at this. So we're not going to get mud on the tyres even. This is the big problem of doing everything in the cockpit on your own and talking. That's why in the real aircraft they have 2 people. And they're not busy talking to a YouTube channel while they're doing it either. So we can have a look outside while we're taxiing along. See the windsock there. We've got a crosswind. Oh, it's turning round slowly, but we're going to have, yeah, there is a headwind vector in that crosswind. So we've got live weather on. Obviously I'm not running with ATC, so I can talk to you guys and not have to overload myself too much with things to do. I will be covering Beyond ATC soon. I'm really impressed with it. I've been really busy recently though, doing so many things. I've not had much chance to spend much time recording videos, I'm afraid. Okay, so we get lined up. And then once we're lined up on the runway, we can go and turn the landing lights to on. Nose lights to takeoff. And you will see down here, there's a few last little bits and pieces to do. So we've got TCAS to deal with. So normally some people won't switch this on until you're in the air. I'm going to cheat a little bit and turn it on right now. So TCAS is Traffic Collision Avoidance System, so it will tell you if there's anything nearby. Normally you wouldn't go to TARA during takeoff. You don't use TA, meaning the aircraft won't respond on autopilot to a warning, so you get, you know, the decision. Otherwise, yeah, it's more important on approach, to be honest, because you wouldn't want the aircraft suddenly deviating and making its own mind up because it sees traffic nearby. Anyway, off the parking brake, just checking things so the flaps are correct. Okay, I think we're good. We can look at the system down here, make sure the checks are in place. So spoilers are armed. Go to max on the auto brakes just in case we have to use them. So full throttle. Goodbye Jacksonville. So you can see the indicated airspeed on the ribbon alongside the attitude indicator, coming up to 140, which is our rotation speed. So pull up. That crosswind is kicking in a little bit, so I'm fighting against it. We're up, gear up. Get it into about a 15-degree climb. Climb the tent on the throttle. Leave the flaps on until we start to accelerate. Have a look outside. Okay, so we're watching that indicated airspeed. And it's starting to accelerate now, look. So the airplane is following, obviously, the restrictions on the flight plan. So flaps up. We're in speed mode, we're in managed heading mode, managed altitude mode, so the airplane is following all of the restrictions basically. So below 10,000 feet we will maintain landing lights on. We don't need to arm the ground spoilers anymore, so they can come off. The auto brake has switched itself off when we got weight off wheels, so that was good. We can have a look out the window. So there's the airport. Remember I said we were going to double back. We can leave this on the operational flight plan page while we're in flight. So we're going to be climbing up through some of this cloud, I think, which would be quite interesting. So just having a little look at the map, if we go over to Navigraph, so you can see we've done that double back. It doesn't render it on the map very well, but we're going towards the jet-in waypoint. So obviously there's Jacksonville Airport. If we change the map here to the sectionals, you get to see where the city is, look. So it's just off to our left at the moment. So if we look out over here, you can see there's the city. about to disappear behind the clouds. And there's the airport behind us there. Trying to fidget around in the seat here to get to a look at it for you. Let's have a look at the other side. I'm just going to jump over to the co-pilot side of the cockpit. It's pretty flat around here, isn't it? Here, you jump back. So I'm afraid there's not going to be a lot to look at on the way out. We've just got a few procedural things. So we're about to come through 10,000 feet. So you'll see the target airspeed jump from 250 knots and go faster. There it goes. Because you have to stay 250 or below. I'm just going to turn off head tracking because it's a bit of a pain. So landing lights off and retracted. We could put the strobe on the whole time while we are at altitude. When we come through 18,000 feet is the transition level in the US. We will change to standard barometric pressure, which there's a shortcut for the Airbus. You pull this knob or click the bottom of it, and it switches the barometric pressure of the altimeter to ensure all aircraft above that level are on a common altitude configuration. So off into the clouds, or hopefully above the clouds. Back in the cockpit, we can increase the range now on the navigation display so we can see the upcoming waypoints. So jet-in is just approaching, it's about 10 miles away. There's the Duerta. I think the flight all in all from end to end is only about half an hour. But as soon as we get through 18,000 feet, I'll pause recording because there's obviously no interest in sitting in an aeroplane for 20 minutes waiting for the descent. If we zoom out on the navigation display just while we're waiting, I can show you. We've got the top of climb is illustrated here. You can just see it peeking in here. If I zoom out further, there's top of descent. So there's top of climb. Let's zoom in to show you this. So we're just approaching jet-in. Then we turn. The aircraft's anticipating our current climb configuration. We will reach 22,000 feet at that arrow, and then about 80 miles out from the destination, we will begin descending. Well, that's the plan anyway. So if we bring the range back down on this. So we're beginning our turn down towards Tampa. 17,000 feet now, approaching 18,000 feet. So the last thing on our laundry list of things to do is about to happen. 17,500. So we're getting ready to pull the barometric pressure. And you'll notice this number change to 1013 when we do so. I've just pulled it. Oh, it shows STD, but it's actually tuned the instrument to 1013 hectopascals instead of whatever the local barometric pressure was at departure. Okay, so we're approaching cruise altitude anyway, so I'm going to go... Did we have seatbelts on auto? No, we had them on. If I go to auto now, it'll probably turn them off automatically. Let people go and race off to go to the bathroom. It always makes me laugh on flights, where as soon as the bell goes, there's a charge for the toilets. So throttles are on auto, guidance is on auto. Welcome to the Airbus, where we can go and make a cup of tea, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So I will pause recording here, and when we get to top of descent, we'll resume recording. So it'd be in about, if we zoom out a bit, in about 70 miles time. I'll see you soon. Okay, I've unpaused the video a little bit early because I wanted to show you something of interest. So we've just made the turn in towards Miami. Sorry, Tampa, not Miami. And a reminder came up on the MCDU asking for us to check the destination data. So what it meant by that is to go to the performance page, go through the phases until you get to approach, and it's asking for the QNH, the temperature and the magnitude of the wind. So what we can do is go to Tampa and pull up the information on the airport, go to the weather, and we can get the barometric pressure, which is down here. We want it in hectopascals, remember, so 1019 if we round it up. 1, so we can key this into the scratch pad, 1019, drop that into the QNH. We want the temperature down there on the ground, so 33 centigrade, and the wind. So they want the direction followed by the magnitude. So we want 90/6. Okay, we don't need to worry about the baro or radio, that's really for minima, so we can go past that. So what are we getting a ping about there? Okay, it's just about the fuel transfer happening, that's absolutely fine. It's funny, whenever I hear a noise I immediately look for the caution and look for red writing somewhere, but there's nothing. Everything is absolutely as per normal. So we're coming up to top of departure. In order for the aircraft to depart, or to descend, sorry, top of departure, top of descent. I really can't talk today. In order for the aircraft to descend properly, we need to go and set the altitude we would like to get to. Notice it's not reacting to me doing this. So we want to, ideally, if this is a good place to look at LittleNavMap because it's good at this. So you can see we're coming along to top of descent, and actually, yeah, Navigraph is better for this. Actually, we're going to go and look at the approach chart. So that's the height we want to get to for the approach. Yeah, at Faddy. If you go and have a look at this diagram, it says 3,000 feet at Faddy with some step descents. So that's what we're going to program in as the target altitude. Yeah, and we push it towards the aeroplane to tell the aeroplane that's where we want to get to, is 3,000 feet. And the aeroplane will start descending. Now it's managed altitude, managed heading, managed speed. So the aeroplane is going to obey any restrictions. And when I say restrictions, if we go and have a look at the standard terminal arrival route, we're coming along here. So what you're looking for are any numbers, here we go, like a blue number. So the only real restriction here is we have to be 6,000 feet at this particular waypoint, yeah, and 230 knots. On the way into there, this is all just guidance. But obviously the aeroplane has worked that out for itself. So if we look ahead to JK bow, you can suddenly see there's a star there, 230 knots, and it's anticipating 6,010 feet. So this is saying 6,000 feet, so that's interesting that it's done that. And then you've got some restrictions further on, look, so Faddy 230, 3,000 feet, JM Bob, so yeah, this is going to be interesting to see what happens. If we want to, and we can see we're coming through JM Bob, we're not going out to JK Bow, look. That's just an anomaly in this rendering of the chart. It's showing other routes in green. Can we make those other routes go away? Apparently not. Anyway, so we're going to follow this direct line through, which is absolutely fine then. So we're coming down to 20,000 feet. Remember, 18,000 feet, we need to switch the barometric pressure over to the local for the destination, which is 1018 or 19. 1019 as soon as we get through 18,000 feet. We may use spoilers along the way to help the airplane slow down. And to help it expedite its descent. So let's put the head tracking back on because it's more fun looking around outside with the head tracking. So just about to come down to 18,000, so we want 1019 on the barometric pressure, so we are going to push this knob in and adjust it to 1019, which means then the altitude is accurate to the destination airfield. So we can bring the zoom level in on the map one. So we've got a 40-mile range now, with each ring is 10 miles. So the next marker showing here is a deceleration marker. So anybody who's never seen the approach into Tampa from the aeroplane coming in from the north, you're going to get to see it today. So the moment the aeroplane is flying itself, and we could do this all the way down to the runway, but I am going to turn autopilot off as soon as we are within range of the airport. So let's go and double check some things. I'm going to go and look at the approach plate for the runway. So ILS 187 degrees, 108.5. We can go and double check that on the MCDU. So 108.5, 181 degrees, that's interesting. So it's not quite the same, but it's good enough. Yeah, so 108.5, 187. So the reason the aircraft knows that is it has the database of ILS settings built into it. So when we put the route in, it got all the details for the ILS as well. So it's not like the Boeings where you have to tune in the nav radios yourself. It's all done for you. Okay, so we're about to come down to 10,000 feet, which is the dot, sorry, is the deceleration marker. So we'll come down to 250 knots. So I'm going to help it do it. There it goes. So I'm going to throw the spoilers out. So if you look outside, you will see that these flaps have opened up on the wings. You'll often see this during a flight, and that's the crew basically helping the aeroplane. So the aeroplane is trying to decelerate, that's the rate of deceleration, towards the next target airspeed. So I'm helping the aeroplane do that. So what we should have done actually as well is go and turn the seatbelt sign back on. Although it was on auto, we're going to put it on now, so there's no mistaking what's going on. Obviously at various points in the flight the pilot would get on the intercom as well and tell the passengers what they're doing. And we're on departure, and they'd give them some timings. Oh, there's a scenery aberration over there. the scenery's gone wrong. Interesting. It's always a bit of an immersion killer when things like that happen, but we'll fly straight past that. We'll look the other way. It's rare that you see that in a simulator these days, actually. So you can see we've got independent ranges on the screens, which is good. So we'll give that a 20-mile range on the nav display on the co-pilot side, because we may well switch this to landing system in a few moments when we straighten up at Fadi for the airport. So we're coming down through 9,000 feet. We're at 250 knots. Have we got an altitude target for Dades? 8,700. I think we're going to be pretty much on the money, aren't we? It's a low-hanging cloud over Tampa by the look of it. So if we were to zoom out, we can see where we are on the map. We'll go and switch this back to auto IFR for the display, so we get an aviation map. We'll get rid of the approach chart for the moment. So you can see us coming in towards this route in, and then we'll come over towards Fadi. And then the line up for the runway. So what was it? 19 right. On the way in, you obviously saw me do the local data for the airport. We'll put in the wind and the altitude and everything. And that's just to advise the autopilot so it can do it even more accurately. So you can see there's the destination. Coming through Lizard, then JK Bell, then Fadi, so we're descending all the time. Below 10,000 feet we should have the landing lights on. I completely forgot about that while I was busy talking to you. Let's go and do that. So if we look outside, so you get to see that. So you've got these super bright lights underneath the wing roots. Hey, coming into JK Bell. Can we go to a first stage of flaps? Not quite yet. Down to 6,000 feet. Remember we were looking for 3,000, but by the time we get into the approach. So you can see we're going to that point where it would have been manual, but we cut the route off and let it go direct. So the aircraft is slowing down now. So we're going to let the flaps extend to the first position. Which will help slow the aircraft further. Allow it to descend that little bit more steeply. We're right on the limit of the flaps though. This is probably a little bit dangerous to do this. But there's no alarms going off. Throttle's gone to idle. (4,900) feet and descending. So we'll reduce the range again. So you can see that last turn coming up. Anti-skid brakes are already on. Auto brake can go to... Will it allow me to do that? No, it won't. Can we go to medium or in the air? Yes, we can. Okay, so about this time normally the pilot will be telling the cabin crew to get ready for landing. That mist is going to be interesting, isn't it? We're not going to see the runway until quite late on. We're still 12 miles out. But there is low fog in the direction of the runway. So we're coming down to 3,000 feet for Faddy, which was the target we were looking for, which is perfect. The aircraft will probably start slowing down again. In fact, we can see that if we go and look on the target airspeeds. So it's not going to slow down actually until we get past Faddy. So at any moment now, that airspeed target will move. So we're lining up with the runway now. So what we'll do is switch over to landing system mode, which shows us our alignment to the center line of the runway and our position on the glide slope. So we're slightly above the glide slope, so we can't use approach mode now. So I'm going to come off the autopilot and guide it in myself. The warning is because I've come off the autopilot. That's interesting. Can I not? I think I have to do it here. Yeah, have to click the button to cancel the warning. So we're going to descend down, put the gear down. So we're going back down onto the glide slope. Let's turn the auto throttles off as well. So I'm in full control now. I've got the throttles and the control of the aircraft. Slowing us down. Gear is down. A bit low, so I'm going to lift the nose gently. This is my second landing in this version of the Airbus, so it's going to be fun. Full flaps. Flaps are travelling. And look at them kick us into the air, that's interesting. It's a lot of lift that just gave us. A little bit high.
Sync rate.
300. 200.
Sync rate.
100. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 5.
Just off the centre line, but I'll take that one. Okay, so spoilers back off, flaps can go up, reverse thrust off, we're just rolling for the next exit. Don't turn the landing lights off until we actually leave the runway. So we'll take a high-speed exit here, just to get clear. Taxi lights on. Sorry, press the being a bit ham-fisted with the controls here. And we'll taxi over to the gates. So as I said, this is not an accurate depiction of Tampa, so the buildings are not going to be correct. They'll be broadly in the right places, but it's done by AI. You can get obviously crafted versions of the airports which will be absolutely accurate. So let's go in on the terminal here. Actually, yeah, we're at the wrong angle, aren't we? Again, the painting on the ground isn't accurate. So we'll bring it in, line the aeroplane up broadly in the right place. Put the parking brake on. And hopefully, if we do things correctly, we can... Now, do we have... Oh, we should have put the APU on while we were coming in, because we haven't got... Unless we cheat. If we go back to ground in here, we can put the GPU in place, put the chocks on the wheels. And now we've put the GPU in place, yeah, we don't need the APU, we can switch straight to external power. And that allows us to go and turn the engines off. Need to go and turn the taxi lights off as well. The other thing we can do on the tablet here is get the jetway, so it will come out to the aeroplane. You can watch that happen from the cockpit. It's always good fun, isn't it? Okay, and obviously then you can just work around switching everything off around the aeroplane. So on the Airbus, all we have to do is turn the pumps off, turn the oxygen off for the crew, because we've now got the doors open, and we don't need the APU on at all because we're using external power. We can turn the ADIAs off. And there's not a great deal else to do. We can turn the emergency exit lights off, we can turn the various lights off around the airplane. We might want the logo on, I suppose, especially if it was low light, to show people that, hey, it's us, it's whatever the carrier is. Turn the seatbelt sign off, and then put, hear bedlam behind us as everybody races to get their bags out of the overhead lockers. And if you want to go cold and dark, obviously you can just turn the external power off and then turn the batteries off, and the plane will go very, very dark indeed, like so. Okay, so hopefully you've enjoyed that. It was another interesting one for me. The approach, oh look, the jetway hasn't fitted on. The passengers are going to have to jump the gap. It was an interesting one for me, because that's the second approach I've done in this aeroplane, and it's a little bit squirrely on approach. It takes a bit of practice, I think. It doesn't seem very accurate. There's various other versions of the Airbus available in the simulator, which I'm sure the real pilots would argue are maybe a little bit more accurate. But again, it's version 1.0 of this version, so I'm not going to complain too much, or at all even, because I think most of the aeroplanes in the sim are great. So there we go. That was it. Jacksonville over to Tampa. If you enjoyed that and you'd like to see other flights like it, let me know. I'm always kind of hunting in the dark with what to do in the simulator. So yeah, if you've got ideas for flights you'd like to see, or approaches to particular airports you'd like to see in particular types of aeroplane, do let me know, and I'll see what I can do. Okay, I'll see you again soon. Take care.